The next step for the Maag EQ plugins on Plugin Alliance is the EQ4 MS, a flagship EQ mostly meant for mastering. The EQ4 MS is a 6-band equalizer. 4 of them can change frequency and bell width in a non-linear way, and I have some thoughts on how this is done, more on that later. There's a 2.5 kHz shelf and you get the renowned air band, which is one of the reasons you want to use a Maag EQ. The EQ4 MS has a big interface. If you want to have some proper visuals, you easily have your screen filled. The layout of the plugin feels familiar because it follows the same path as, for instance, the Brainworx 200 EQ. You get level on top, frequency and width in the middle, and this utility bar on the bottom. There's even TMT here below, the randomization algo of Brainworx. But in my opinion, the only useful thing about that in mastering is the AD switch, where A offsets the left, right or mid-side band slightly. This can give a slightly bigger sound, where the D has the exact same curves for both sides. The basic EQ4 MS sound is basically the same as with the EQ4. It has globally the same wavy curve, but the high end is slightly different, as well as the default high pass. Will you hear this? Probably never. Also in default, the EQ4 MS has this added third harmonic. So what is the biggest difference? First of all, you get independent left-right control if you need that, and mid-side, which is great for mastering. Furthermore, you have a lot more choice in which frequencies you can change, and that is done with all these switches. This is also the most confusing part of this plugin. Not only because of how the switches function, but also of the description of them in the manual. There it states that the upper switches change the center frequency of the bell, and the lower switches change between a wider or tighter bandwidth. Now, when you change any of these switches, you will get an EQ boost without changing gain. This is not bad, it's because of the non-linear behavior. Or in other words, they don't do what you expect. What is very confusing at first is, even without boosting, changing the lower switches will not only change bandwidth but also frequency, and even adds a cut below the boost with certain settings. The frequency indications are somewhat correct, but also can vary quite a bit. And when you change the boost or cut, the difference gets even bigger. You can see here, for instance, that the center frequency lowers with boost. And on top of that, the bands of course interact and influence each other. I think because of this behavior, it would have been far better to have used rotary switches where each one covers a frequency range. A rotary switch is a lot more clear and user-friendly, and isn't as confusing as keeping an eye on the 4 combinations you can get with these 2 switches. It is a bit gimmicky in my opinion for a plugin. Because of how these switches work and how close they are together frequency-wise, I found myself usually starting out by increasing gain and flipping the switches of the top 3 frequency bands, while I listen to find the right spots to either cut or boost. The air band works as lovely as you expect. It can really lift any mix in a musical way. The low end was usually a simple boost. One smart addition is the auto level. This one will listen to your audio for a little while and adjust the output of the plugin to match the original audio. This will give you a fair comparison of what the plugin is actually doing without being skewed by level difference. The soft clip can add additional harmonics. Too much will add overdrive, but in lower amounts it nicely adds thickness.
I've been waiting for love. In my dreams, are you an angel that's been sent from above, baby? In my dreams.
Please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already and hit that little like button. This video is sponsored by DistroKid. If you need to split the revenue of your releases with multiple collaborators, DistroKid has splits. This enables you to, very simply, split the revenue you make. Add as many collaborators for a release you want and decide how much of the cake they get in percentages. On top of that, you can set recoupments as well, so if you agree on a fixed fee instead of royalties, this is the way to do that. Get 7% off of your first year with DistroKid by using the link in the description. The EQ4 MS is best suited for mastering, but that doesn't mean you never can use it in mixing. For instance, with this somewhat generic male vocal, the air band nicely can bring out breathiness in the vocal.
Again, baby, you've got nothing to prove. Baby, we got nothing to lose.
I cannot reduce that 2.5K, which is too present in this vocal, in a direct way, but with some tinkering it is possible. For that I'll reduce the 2.5 kHz shelf and boost the air band and play with the frequencies. It leaves this dip which I need.
Doesn't matter what you say, tomorrow can't come too soon. Close my eyes at night, I think of you. When the sun drifts down to the beat, what can I do?
The Maag EQ4 MS is zero latency and uses very little CPU, which is always nice to have. I am not sure I would use this mastering EQ every time, simply because of the very non-linear way these switches work, which I find makes EQing needlessly more complex than it should be. You can always grab the previous EQ4 if you want that air band. Maybe you think otherwise and this plugin is the perfect new EQ for your audio toolshed. Let me know in the comments.